If you ask me, heaven is made of blue sky, tall pines, still lakes, and the shifting curtains of the northern lights. And the music of heaven is the chorus of wind through tree branches, the drum of a fast-running brook over stones, the haunting cry of a loon. Heaven for me is the North Country of Minnesota. Hi, I'm William Kent Kruger. I write the Cork O'Connor mystery series set in the Great North Woods of Minnesota. In the 10 books in my series, I've tried to give readers two things: a thrilling mystery and a sense of the remarkable nature of this landscape I call home. In books like Iron Lake, Boundary Waters, and Mercy Falls, I've taken readers deep into the vast wilderness that straddles the Canadian border. This year, with the newest book in the Cork O'Connor series, I'll be taking readers to a place in Minnesota that represents one of the most unique geographical anomalies in the entire country. It's called the Northwest Angle. It's the northernmost point in the 48 contiguous states. It's a small triangle of land, far from civilization, cut off from the rest of the world by one of the largest lakes in the Western Hemisphere, Lake of the Woods. There are over 14,000 islands in this lake, mostly uninhabited and still very wild. Take it from a guy who's been writing mysteries for 15 years. Northwest Angle is a place that cries out suspense. Into this remote maze of waterways, Cork O'Connor has brought his family for a vacation. When a storm of hurricane force sweeps across the lake, devastating the landscape, Cork finds himself stranded on a ruined island. The horrific discovery that he makes there brings to him the realization that the wind has ushered in a force far darker and more deadly than any storm. I think Northwest Angle is the best suspense novel I've written. I hope you give it a try, and if you like it, I hope you read some of the other books in my series.
How did you know that you wanted to become a writer?
Well, my father was a high school English teacher, and he never let me go down at night or down for a nap without reading a story to me. So I grew up reading and thinking of the world in terms of stories, and for whatever reason, I always wanted to be one of the storytellers. So in the third grade, I wrote a short story called The Walking Dictionary, which was in fact about a dictionary that didn't think it was being used enough by people. So it magically sprouted legs and toddled off into the world so that it could go to the people that needed it. My third grade teacher oohed and awed over that story. My high school English teacher father oohed and awed over that story. In the third grade, I knew I was going to be a writer.
Did you continue writing?
I have always written. I served a very long apprenticeship, Libby. I didn't publish my first novel until I was 48.
Okay. Why do you think it was so long?
Actually, I think the thing is that it took me a very long time to discover my voice, to figure out what it was I wanted to write about, and that occurred significantly when I moved to Minnesota. When we went to Minnesota, my wife and I, so she could go to law school there, and I discovered the remarkable state that Minnesota is and the wonderful people there. I was really inspired.
Now, I know you didn't start out writing mysteries. You started out writing literary fiction, or you wanted to write literary fiction. How did you come to write mysteries?
So my father, the high school English teacher, when I was 18 years old, insisted that I read Ernest Hemingway, and I fell madly in love with the guy. And at 18 years old, wanted to be Ernest Hemingway. So I read everything by him and everything about him, and decided that that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be Ernest Hemingway. So I tried for a very long time to write the great American novel a la Ernest Hemingway, which is a mistake on so many levels. And finally, when I hit my 40s and my midlife crisis, I decided I want to write something that somebody might actually want to read. Mm-hmm. And I looked around me to see what people read. And you know what people read. Everybody reads mysteries. It's a genre whose appeal cuts across all socioeconomic levels, so I thought I'm going to write a mystery. Didn't know anything about them because I didn't read mysteries. So I took a class called How to Write a Mystery. It worked. I wrote the first chapter for my first published novel in the Cork O'Connor series, Iron Lake, in that class.
So you have a reputation for being a very literary mystery author, if that's not a contradiction in
Yeah,
terms.
thank you, Ernest Hemingway.
Right, I was going to say, do you ever have any regrets that you're not writing literary fiction, or are you all in with the mystery genre?
Yeah, I get a little miffed at the need to separate what we do into categories: mystery, romance, science fiction, literary. But I don't mind at all people being able to find me easily in the mystery section of a bookstore. One of the things that I discovered when I chose to write mysteries is that I was closing no literary doors to myself. Every literary ambition I might have, every literary technique, every literary goal was still out there available to me, but it was without that heavy weight of feeling like I've got to write the great American novel. Mm-hmm. So it was a very liberating thing for me, and I tried to write stories that my father would have been proud in terms of the language that I use and how I structure a story, and some of the homages that I include.
How long were you living in Minnesota before you discovered Cork?
I didn't start writing my first Cork O'Connor novel until I was, I think, 40 or 41, and I moved to Minnesota when I was 30. So it took me a very long time. I continued to try to write the great American novel when I first moved to Minnesota, and it took me a very long time to let go of that and finally get around to opening the door to Cork O'Connor and to mysteries and all of the fun that has given me.
You and I are both similar. Probably a lot of mystery authors do this, in that there is the mystery story, but there's also an underlying issue or a social issue that you want people to know about. And for you, it is Native Americans in Minnesota or in the upper Northwest, Midwest. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. There used to be in literature what was called the social novel. And this was a piece of fiction that was wrapped around a significant issue of the day that the author wanted to bring to the awareness of a larger audience. So Charles Dickens was a social novelist.
Not really a muckraker.
Not a muckraker. Upton Sinclair talked muckraking, but a social novelist. Theodore Dreiser, Sister Carrie, American Tragedy, great social novels. But we don't really have the social novel anymore. And I think what's taken its place is the crime mystery genre, because a good crime novel these days, you're going to more often than not find a significant social issue at the heart of it. Mm-hmm. And when I turned to writing about the Ojibwe, the Native American population, and all of the horrific difficulties that they have had to deal with as a people, there were so many issues. It's just a question of which one I choose to talk about this time. So Manitou Canyon, for example, I'm talking about how deep pocket interests, large corporations, mining companies take advantage of the Native Americans' inability, because of finances basically, to protect themselves against their land, their rights being trampled on, their land being raped. I have published 15 books in this series, and those 15 books cover 15 years in the lives of the Cork O'Connor clan. So Cork is aged 15 years. His children, who were really...
Which is kind of unusual. A lot of authors don't age their protagonists or their characters.
But more and more are doing that. You read C.J. Box, you read James Lee Burke, you read the Harry Bosch series, Michael Connelly. All of their protagonists are in fact aging, and I love that. I love reading those series particularly, because you can watch the development. You can watch how life and what life does to us, how it affects our response to the world and to one another. I think that's just great. That's where the literature comes in. But part of what's going on with me is I'm not native to Minnesota. Didn't move there until I was 30. And the discovery of northern Minnesota in particular was such an amazing revelation to me, that when I write about northern Minnesota, I'm writing still with those eyes that see in wonderment.
also as an outsider.
As an outsider, so I believe I'm saying things that maybe people who have grown up their whole lives have become a little jaded to. So, and like every good writer, when you write, you try to use all of this, evoke all of the senses. So when I'm in northern Minnesota, I'm taking in the smell of the pines, or standing over a lake of pristine water, and there's such a wonderful scent that comes up from that water, or a campfire and the smell of the smoke, or you set up a tent and the smell of the canvas on the, if you're an old camper, the smell of the canvas, it's made of different material now. But I try to bring that sense, that the isolation, the wildness, and how that shaped the population of northern Minnesota. It's a very unique population in northern Minnesota, the area we call the Range, the Iron Range. Yeah, you know, I yesterday, I can't tell you exactly why, I tallied up the number of events I did last calendar year, and it was 98. I did 98 book events last year. And that's not even counting the Skype events that I do with book groups that I can't actually visit. So I do a lot. I go out a lot.
You're a glutton for punishment.
Do you know, I love that connection. I love that person. You know, writing, you sit down, it's a solitary endeavor. You really never know how you're doing, but you go out and you meet the people who enjoy your work, and it's that personal connection. And isn't it wonderful when you meet someone and they say, "Oh, I love your work. Please don't stop writing."
Yes.
So I do a lot of them. A lot of the events that I do are rural library events, small towns, rural libraries, because I so profoundly believe in the importance of libraries as a cornerstone of our democracy.
Do you ever have dry periods?
I don't. Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm one now. That's why I asked.
No, I don't know. I have more ideas than I will ever have time to actually put to paper.
I think for me, it's a question, the dry period comes when I'm not sure where to take the story next. Like, I've written 25 pages and I'm like, okay, I'm past the introduction now. Now where do I want to go?
That's usually when you call me and we talk about it.
I owe you a call. What has surprised you the most about being an author or writing mysteries?
That you can make a living at it. You can make a pretty good living at it.
Some of you.
Okay, that both surprised and pleases me tremendously, because that was one of my goals in life, was to get to the point where I could actually support myself and my family through my writing, and I got there. One of the things that I love most about my writing, and that I never thought about, is that it has connected me with such a large community. The mystery community itself is a wonderful, warm, supportive, generous community. And all of the people who read my books and communicate with me on a regular basis, I carry on lots of conversations with folks. What a tremendous thing to discover that people like what I do well enough to take the time to let me know, to ask me questions, to probe a little deeper in who I am and where my writing comes from.
Who do you read? Who do you think are some of the best mystery writers around?
You know, the truth is there are so many that I don't get a chance to read them all. So my standbys are, James Lee Burke. Doesn't everybody read James Lee Burke? Dennis Lehane, who's just a master at storytelling and finding the right words and the right voice to tell a story. Michael Connelly never disappoints me. I love your work when you let me see it. I have been really fond of Louise Penny's work over the years.
Okay, that's good. That's a good place to start if you're looking for new mystery authors.
Whether you visit Minnesota only through my writing, or visit it for real someday, I think it's a place that will steal your heart. As the Ojibwe of Minnesota say, miigwech. Thank you.